I accidentally texted my crush, "Oh my gosh, he looked so fine today, I want him so bad." And I want to tell you about the 3 hours between when I realized and when he responded, because those 3 hours were the longest of my life. His name was Elijah. We had been working together for 11 months at a small architecture firm with 14 people total. We had been on overlapping projects for 3 months. I had developed what I would describe as a considered professional respect for him, and what I would more accurately describe as a situation. I had been texting my best friend Yuna about him for 11 months. The texts were the specific genre you send to a best friend about a coworker who has no idea. The texts had been escalating. They peaked on the Tuesday in question because Elijah had worn a specific shirt I had not seen before, and the shirt had done something to me. I went home and texted Yuna a series of messages culminating in the specific message in question. I sent it. I put my phone down. I went to brush my teeth. When I came back, I picked up my phone. I looked at the top of the thread. The top of the thread was not Yuna. The top of the thread was Elijah. Yuna and Elijah both started with Y in my contacts. Y for Yuna, Y for Jaeger, which was Elijah's last name. I had tapped the wrong one. I stared at the message for 45 seconds. He had already seen it. The read receipt was from 3 minutes after I sent it. He had read it and had not responded. He continued to not respond for 3 hours. The first hour I spent on the bathroom floor considering whether to move to another country. I drafted several follow-up messages that would contextualize the original. None were better than the original. I deleted the drafts. The second hour I moved to the living room. I ate a bowl of cereal. I stared at the wall. I tried to determine from 11 months of evidence whether the situation was mutual or entirely mine. The evidence was not conclusive in either direction. I considered that the inconclusiveness had been the thing sustaining 11 months of texts to Yuna, and would now be the thing producing my humiliation. The third hour, I looked at my phone approximately every 4 minutes. The read timestamp had not changed. The silence was its own text. I did not know what it was saying. At hour 3, minute 44, the phone buzzed. The message said one sentence. "I noticed you started wearing your hair up around me 3 months ago, and I have been wondering if it meant anything." That sentence told me everything. 3 months was a specific number. My hair up was a specific thing. I had started doing it because I had read somewhere that showing your neck was something you did subconsciously when interested in someone, except I had not been doing it subconsciously because I was reading about the thing and then doing the thing. Elijah had been watching me do the thing for 3 months, without saying anything, until a specific message gave him permission to ask. I replied. I said I started wearing my hair up because I had read it meant something and I wanted you to see me doing it, and I had been hoping you would notice, and I am glad you did, and I am sorry about the earlier message, but also not really, because the earlier message has apparently produced this conversation which I have been wanting to have for 11 months. He said, 11 months? I said, 11 months. He said, I started noticing you in November. I said, November was when we started the project. He said, I have been wondering if I should say something for 6 months. I did not want to make it weird at work if you were not interested. I was waiting for information. I said, what kind of information? He said, the kind you just provided. We have been together 2 years. We told our manager after 3 months. We are engaged. He proposed at the restaurant from our first date. He said, thank you for sending the wrong text. I do not think I would have said anything if you had not. I would have wondered about you for several more years. I said, we got saved by a Y. He said, we got saved by you being brave enough to text your best friend about it for 11 months. You kept the thing alive by telling someone it was real. You were going to tell someone real eventually. I am glad you told me by accident. The message is still on his phone. It is screenshotted in a folder labeled Things That Matter. I saw the folder one day by accident. It had 3 screenshots in it. I did not ask about the others. He saw me see the folder. He said, you can look. I said, I do not want to. He said, they are nice things. I said, I believe you. I think about the message occasionally. I think about the bathroom floor. I think about 3 hours and a read receipt. I think about it every time I wear my hair up. Elijah still notices every time. He does not say anything anymore. He does not have to. He knows I know he is noticing. That is enough. Then the firm hired someone new. Her name was Frederica, junior designer, good at her job, friendly with everyone, especially friendly with Elijah. I did not think anything of it. What I did notice was that Frederica asked a lot of personal questions. She asked how Elijah and I got together. I told her the whole thing, the wrong text, the 3 hours, the hair, the why. I told her because I was not ashamed of it. I had told the story a dozen times, and every time I laughed and the person laughed, and it was a good story. One evening, Elijah was quieter than usual. He was holding his phone but not reading it. Then he said, Frederica said something to me today. She told me she saw some old messages between you and Yuna. She said some of the things you wrote about me were not just about having a crush. She said they were about strategy, about how to get me to notice you. I said, how would Frederica have seen messages between me and Yuna? Elijah said Frederica told him Yuna had shown them to her at a party, and they had laughed about it together. I texted Yuna immediately. Yuna responded in 2 minutes. I never showed anyone those messages. I do not even know a Frederica. I showed the screen to Elijah. He read it. He said, I believe you. But Frederica described specific details. She mentioned the hair thing. She mentioned the shirt. She knew things that are not public. He was right. The hair and the shirt were things I had typed to my best friend in private. Frederica knew them. The only way she could was if she had seen the actual messages. Yuna remembered. A housewarming a few months ago. 15 or 20 people. She had left her phone unlocked on a table while she got food. Gone maybe 10 minutes. Frederica had been there as someone's +1. That was the timeline. Frederica had picked up a phone that was not hers, read 11 months of my most private thoughts, and carried the details for months. And now she was using what I had written to my best friend to build a version of me that was not real, and handing it to the person I loved. I told Elijah everything Yuna told me. He listened. Then he said, we are a team. We have been since the wrong text. I went to bed thinking the worst was over. I was wrong. The next day, the air in the office was different. Colleagues who normally said good morning did not say good morning. At lunch, my manager Miles pulled me aside. He said, Frederica came to me this morning. She filed an informal concern. She said when you and Elijah started dating, you used information from a coworker's private messages to engineer the relationship. She is framing it as a workplace conduct issue. Frederica had taken this from the personal to the professional. She had used words like engineer and conduct, and framed the best accident of my life as something calculated and wrong. I gave Miles my side, the accidental text, the why in contacts, disclosing the relationship to him after 3 months, that Frederica was a 2-month hire with no prior knowledge beyond what she had taken from someone else's phone. Miles said, I have known you and Elijah for 2 years, but if she pushes this further, I will have to involve the partners. I went to the parking lot. Elijah was already there, leaning against his car. He said, she came to me again this morning, before she went to Miles. She told me you sent that text on purpose, that Una helped you plan it as a way to force me into a conversation I was not ready for. Someone had taken the most honest accident of my life and rewritten it as a trap. I said, you know that is not true. He said, I know, but she was convincing. She had a version that made sense if you did not know the real story. And for about 30 seconds, I felt something I did not want to feel. I said, what? He said, doubt. That word sat between us in the parking lot. Small, 5 letters, the heaviest word he had ever said to me. I said, 30 seconds? He said, 30 seconds. And then I remembered the bathroom floor, and I remembered 3 hours, and I remembered what you said when you finally replied, and I knew. I said, 30 seconds is a long time when someone is trying to take something from you. He said, I know. I am sorry it existed at all. That night, I called Una and asked her to write a statement confirming the messages were private. She never shared them. She did not know Frederica, and her phone had been left unlocked at the gathering where Frederica was present. Una said, this person went through my phone and is using my private conversations as a weapon. I am furious. She had it written by 7 the next morning. Then Elijah slid his phone across the kitchen table. He had a notes app open. 6 entries. 6 separate notes, each dated, each describing a conversation Frederica had started with him about me over 5 weeks. The first was casual, asking about the wedding. By the 3rd, she was calling my messages obsessive. By the 5th, she was claiming she had seen them through Una. By the 6th, she was telling him I had planned the whole thing. He had been keeping track for 5 weeks. He had not told me because he wanted to understand what was happening before he worried me. He had been protecting me quietly, the same way he had been noticing my hair quietly, the same way he had been wondering about me quietly for 6 months before a wrong text gave him permission to speak. I walked into Miles's office the next morning with everything. Una's statement, Elijah's 6 dated entries, the timeline placing Frederica at the party, a direct message Frederica had sent me the night before positioning herself as the reasonable one. I think we should talk. I am not trying to hurt you. Elijah deserves honesty. I had screenshotted it, added it to the file. Miles read through it all carefully. He said, this is thorough. I am bringing this to the partners today. 2 days later, conference room, me, Elijah, Frederica, Miles, 2 senior partners. Frederica spoke first, calm, polished. She said she had become aware of information suggesting I had engineered a relationship using private intelligence from a third party's messages. She said she felt ethically obligated to bring it forward. When it was my turn, I did not try to match her tone. I told the truth the way it happened. The accidental text, the 11 months. I presented Una's statement, the timeline, Elijah's 6 dated notes, Frederica's message, all of it in order. One of the partners turned to Frederica and said, how did you come to know the specific details of private text messages? Frederica said she heard about them from someone at a party. The partner asked who. Frederica said she could not remember. The partner asked again. Frederica said she did not remember. The partner said, you filed a written concern based on information from a source you cannot identify, about messages you claim were shared by someone you cannot name, regarding a relationship that has been disclosed and conducted professionally for 2 years. Then Elijah spoke. He said, I have been listening to someone describe my relationship as if it were a scheme. It was not a scheme. It was a wrong text. It was 3 hours of silence. It was me being too afraid to say something for 6 months, and her being too afraid for 11. It was 2 people who got lucky because one of them made a mistake. And I have been keeping notes for 5 weeks because the person sitting across from me has been trying to convince me the best thing that ever happened to me was a lie. Frederica's composure cracked. She looked down at the table. Her voice dropped. She said, I was not trying to destroy anything. Then she said, someone did this to me. Someone I trusted told me my relationship was not what I thought it was. And they were right. And I watched it fall apart. And when I heard your story, the cute story about the wrong text, I thought it was too neat. I thought there had to be something underneath because there was something underneath mine. She said, I was wrong. I looked through your friend's phone at that party. I read the messages. And I convinced myself they proved something they did not prove. The partners dismissed the concern entirely. Frederica was offered the option to resign or remain with a written warning and counseling. One of the partners looked at us and said, your relationship was disclosed properly, conducted professionally, and is not the firm's business beyond that. I am sorry this happened. We walked to the parking lot. Neither of us spoke for a full minute. Then Elijah reached over and tucked a strand of hair behind my ear. I was wearing my hair up the way I had been for 2 years. He said, I noticed. I laughed and said, you always notice. He said, I always will. I thought about the bathroom floor 2 years ago and how I had sat there waiting for someone else to decide my story. I thought about today, standing in a room telling my own story with evidence I built and words I chose. I was not the girl who sent the wrong text anymore. I was the woman who sent the right ones when it mattered. Elijah took my hand. The message was still screenshotted in the folder on his phone labeled Things That Matter. I thought maybe I would ask to see the other 2 screenshots someday. Not today. Today was enough.